welcome back to Code Hive, the place where we make it work, make it right, and make it fast. So in today's video, I want to show you guys how to create a Django project as well as your first application, right? So I just created a folder and I called my folder Code Hive, right? So let us get to it. So the first thing that you have to do, or well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to open this folder in VS Code, right? So I've already went ahead and I opened that folder. Okay, so this is all that we have. There's nothing really going on, right? So what I want to do is I want to create a folder right in here. So I want to call the folder backend. So the reason why I'm calling it backend is, like I explained to you guys in the other video, that most of the time Django is a framework for your backend stuff, right? So hence why I'm calling it backend, right? So you can call it whatever, but just for the purpose of this video, that's just what I'm going to call it. Okay, then the next thing that you need to do, you need to make sure that you have Node.js installed, right? So I will leave all these links in the description below, but you need to make sure that you have Node.js installed. I already have mine installed, so please make sure that before you continue with the rest of this video, you have this installed. So this is the site, you just download, install, and that's just that, right? Okay, so if we go back here, right, the next thing that we need to do is we need to install a virtual environment, right? So I will explain to you guys what a virtual environment does and what it is, but again, we have to go to the website where you install your virtual environment. So this is the website, just pip install virtual env, right? So if we just copy that and we come back to our Visual Studio Code, we make sure that we open a terminal. So you open a terminal and you need to make sure that you are inside that folder that we just created. So if we just cd to the back end, just to make sure that we are in that folder, and then we paste the pip install virtual env, right? I already have mine installed, so again, requirement already satisfied, right? Because I already have mine installed. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is to create a virtual environment. So basically a virtual environment, right, is a virtual Python environment builder. Okay, so yeah, that's just basically a virtual environment. We need to always make sure that we have a virtual environment installed, and we need to also activate that virtual environment. Okay. So in order to do that, we're just going to go ahead and say Python. Let me just clear this so that it can be nicely over there. Okay. So again, make sure you're in your folder that we just created, the backend folder, right? So we're just going to go ahead and say Python mvenv, right? So that keyword always stays. Then the next one now is whatever you want to call your virtual environment. So I'm just going to call it venv or venv, whatever you want to, however you want to say it. Okay? And we press enter, and you will notice on the side here by the back end, there's a few things that have just been added, right? So we have the virtual environment created with a couple of folders really. So yeah. Okay, so basically that's that. Then the next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that that virtual environment is running, right? So you're going to say your virtual environment name. In this case, I went with venv, right? Then you're going to go slash, then we're going to go scripts, then activate. Okay, so if you can see, scripts is there on the side, and we're just calling the activate so that we can activate the virtual environment. Okay, and if we just hit enter in our terminal, then you can see that venv has this little thing over there to show that that is active. Okay, so basically that is setting up your virtual environment. Okay, so now the next thing that we need to do, now that our virtual environment is active, we need to install Django. Okay, so again, I will leave all these links for you guys in the description below. So how to install Django? So this is the official Django documentation. You can go through it, when you got the time to. So basically, in order to install Django, he's just going to copy that over there, and you're going to come back to your back end. So again, you need to make sure that you're in your back end folder and your virtual environment is active. So if we just paste in all that and we say enter, then it is going to, install Django for us. So just going to take a little bit of time, but just give it a few minutes and it will be installed. Okay, so now that Django is done installing, you will see that successfully installed Django as well as the version. Okay, so again, that's that. Then the next thing that we need to do is we need to install REST framework. So basically, I will share with you guys all these links again. So if you just go to the official Django REST framework website, they will explain to you guys what Django REST framework does and what it is. But basically, it's just for building web APIs. You can use authentication stuff. You can use serializations, views and all that stuff. So if you just, go through it. But in order to install, you're just going to get that line over there that says pip install Django REST framework. And again, you need to make sure that your virtual environment is running and that you are in your backend folder. Okay, and then you just clear that. And you just paste pip install Django REST framework. Then it should, successfully install. Okay, so now that we're done with the Django REST framework, now we are moving on to creating our project. So basically, when working with Django, right, you can create one project but with multiple applications, right? So that's the nice thing. And all you just need to do is to find a way to link your Django project to be able to use a certain application. Okay, but we will go through all those details. So I'm just going to clear that again. Okay, so now our virtual environment is still running. We're still in the backend folder, right? So now what we're going to say is we're going to say Django/admin start project. So that's going to be one word, and then your project name. So I'm just going to say first project, and then hit enter. And if we come to the back end, we should see the first project right over there. So what it did, it installed, it created a folder, and then it created another folder underneath with all these files inside. So I will just explain these files to you guys in a minute. But what I want you guys to do is you need to move your manage.py, right, to the back end. So you need to move it to that highest folder that you just created in the beginning. Right? So are you sure you want to move it? Then you'll see it right there in the bottom. Then the next thing that you need to do now, right? So we can see that we have these two folders. So there's that folder and then that folder. It's the same thing, but what we need to do is to move all these things, all these packages, all these files into that first folder, and then we need to delete the second folder. So if we just move that to the first one, then we move to the first one over there, and then again setting, okay, URLs, then the last one. Okay, then now we can see that, okay, we have this other one that is just empty. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to delete that file, that folder. Okay, so basically this is what we have. We have our back end, right? Inside we have our project, which is first project, and it includes all those files over there. Then we have our virtual environment and all of that, right? There's manage.py. Okay, so now to explain all these folders to you guys, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and come here. Okay, so basically, if I explain to you guys the project folders, right? So these are these files over here, right? The project files. Okay, so the manage.py, which is the one that we just moved to the bottom over there, right? So the manage.py is a command line utility that lets you interact with this Django project in various ways, so that when you create your application, you can still make use of that folder, right? It will make sense once we continue, but basically that's what that file is all about. One thing that you need to remember you do not touch that file at all. You just leave it like that. You don't fidget, you don't change anything in there. It just stays like that. Then the next one that we have is init.py. So this file just tells Python that this directory should be considered as a Python package. Okay. Then settings.py. So this is where you will configure all your settings. So this is where you will call all your application. You will import your course headers. You will import your REST framework. So that's where everything will go in the settings.py. Okay, and then the URLs, this is where you will define your URLs basically. So whatever you want to make use of, then you will essentially have to declare a URL for it in the urls.py. Probably does not make sense, but it will make sense once we get into it. Then these two files, asgi.py and wsgi.py. Basically it's just an entry point for ASGI compatible web servers to serve your project, an entry point for WSGI compatible web servers to serve your project. So basically there's nothing really going on here. You don't touch it. It's nothing to be concerned about, right? So basically those are your files inside of your project. Okay, so now that we have created our first project, now we need to look at how to create our application, right? Okay, so the first thing that we need to make sure, again, our virtual environment is running and we are still inside the backend folder. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to say Python manage.py start app and then your app name. So I'm just going to call it first. Oh, what happened? Yeah, I think I made a mistake somewhere. Python manage.py start app. But it already created. Okay, let me just leave it like that. It's okay. I already pressed enter by mistake. I wasn't even done. But anyway, so that's your project, right? Or well, your app name. Okay, so the app name is called first. I don't really like that. I'm gonna delete it and I'm gonna do it again. Okay, start application first app, start app first app. Cool. Then we can see our first app over there. So we have this migrations folder in there. It will make sense once we start working with models and all that stuff. Then when you do your migrations, all your migrations will be in this migrations folder. Okay, and then these are the files that you have inside your application. So if we go back and I show you guys those different files, admin.py is for registering your models here, right, for them to be manipulated on the Django admin. So I will show you guys how to do that, but yeah, most of the times you won't even have to use that Django admin unless, yeah, I don't know, unless you want to, I guess. Then the next one is your apps.py. So this contains the app configuration code, so you don't really touch that. Yeah, we don't really touch that at all. Then you have your models.py. So this is where you define your models. So basically I said in the previous video that they are the tables used for storing data and defining their relations. So again, we used to, in other videos, SQL as well as Oracle, create table name and all that stuff. That's basically all that's coming in your models.py. That's where you do all those things in your models.py. Then test.py, writing tests for the app. And then views.py is defining data to be rendered on the templates. So views, that's where you're creating your API calls, right? Then you're having your render, you can use your view set or API view, whatever you want to use. But for this channel specifically, I will be using API view and probably view sets here and there. But yeah, so basically that's an explanation of your application as well as your project files. Okay. So if we just go back, so those are all the stuff that I just mentioned. Okay, so the next thing that you need to do, right, because now we've created our application and we've created our project, right? What we need to do now is we need to somewhat configure the application inside the project, right? So I did explain to you guys that you need to make sure that your project is aware of your application, right? So if we come to the project and we come to settings.py, then this is what you'll see. So if you come under installed apps, right? So there's two things that we installed. We installed REST framework. So if I come back to the REST framework, then you'll see that you need to configure that inside the settings underneath the installed apps. So we're just going to copy that, right? And we're just going to come in our settings folder and we're just going to paste it in there. REST framework, right? So the next thing that we need to also mention is our application name, right? So our app name is called First App. Okay, so now you are telling the project that you are going to be working with that first application. So you need to configure it under the installed applications inside your settings.py. Settings.py is only available in your project. Okay, so we're going to come and just save it. Then the next thing that we need to do is now we need to go to our application, right? So we can see that in our application we don't have any urls.py, right? So we need to create a new file and we need to call it urls.py. Okay, so basically this URLs will serve the same purpose as the URLs inside of your project. So it's just the URL declarations for this Django project. So basically the table of contents. Okay, so if we just come back, so the first thing that you guys need to do is you're just going to say from Django, right, .contrib, okay, import admin. Okay. Then the next thing you need to say is from Django.urls and import auth. Okay, so those are the two imports that we need. And then for now we're just going to keep it plain, empty. So just going to say URL patterns, and this is where you would have your URL patterns in here. But for now we're just going to leave it empty. Okay, so we can save that, and then now we need to show our project, right, that we will be using the URLs that will be in our application. So if we go to the urls.py inside of our project, right, we need to make sure that the project knows that it needs to also use all the URLs that are going to be inside our application. Okay, so here on line 18, so I'm just going to clear all that. Okay, so now what I want is I also want to import include. Wrong spelling. Include. Okay, so underneath here we're just going to say path, right, and we're just going to leave it empty like that, and then we're going to say include. So what do I want to include? I want to include the first app .urls. So we are telling this project that, listen, I want to include all the URLs from my first app. So from that application, I want to include the URLs that we'll be adding inside of this folder or this file. I don't know if this makes sense, but I think it will make sense once we start actually working on a project. Because right now it's just the installation. It can get a little bit tricky. It's just but so basically that's that, right? And then you can just go ahead and save that. So basically that's that, right? So we just created our first application as well as the first project environment. So remember when I said to you guys that manage.py allows your application to make use of all the stuff inside the manage.py. That's because when we, I don't know if you guys remember, let me just open the old one. But here when we created our first application, we used managed.py. So if this folder was not outside of these two folders, right, then you weren't going to be able to use manage.py. It was going to say that that file does not exist. Okay, so basically, like the explanation that I wrote down here, it lets you interact with the Django project. Okay, so yeah, okay, so basically that is that. Created our first application, created our first project, and in order to run the whole thing, right, so I'm going to open my terminal again, and I'm going to cd back into my backend. Okay, and then I'm going to say Python. Okay, my virtual environment is not active, but I think, I mean, either way, it's still going to do the same thing. But now, right, I just wanted to show you guys how it looks. So Python manage.py run server. So this is for running your server, right? So one thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that once I press enter, it will say that I have migrations unapplied. And I want you guys to look on my Explorer over here and see if there's any changes that will be made. It will say there's migrations that are unapplied, but let's go ahead. If I say enter, it will say that I have 18 unapplied migrations. So for now, I'm just going to leave it like that because I understand, you know, the problem. But basically what happened over there is it now added a SQLite file, right? So db.sqlite 3, right? So because I added stuff like REST framework and, you know, all the configurations and stuff like that, right, it needs migration. So it says your project may not work properly until you apply the migrations for apps, right? So again, admin, auth, contents types, sessions, all that is coming from the Django REST framework, right? So we can just go ahead and just, you know, make those migrations. But really, I just wanted to show you guys in another video because, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so let's go ahead and save in scripts, activate. Okay, so in order to do migrations, so you would say Python manage.py make migrations. Okay, so make migrations, right, is to say that these are the changes that happened, right? So I want to make migrations for these changes, and then migrate is to say apply those changes. So in this case, the changes were already made, but if I say enter, it's going to say nothing, right? So the problem that we need to do, or we need to fix, is to say manage.py migrate. Then all that will be done. So basically, it's just all the stuff that has to do with the admin, auth, content types, as well as sessions. So I will explain to you guys the difference again between make migrations as well as migrate. When to use make migrations and when to use migrate. But basically now, if we go ahead and, you know, Python manage.py run server, then it shouldn't give us any problems. So if we just copy this URL, or you can just, you know, hover over it and click, and then we come here and we just go ahead and paste it, then voila, your Django application works, right? So basically that is that. So in terms of the admin stuff, right, I did say to you guys that, you know, there is an admin portal. This is what it is. I think I did mention it somewhere in this project. Yes, I did here. The admin.py. So this is for registering your models and all that stuff. So basically this is this. Yeah. So I don't know, I feel like I said a lot. I said a mouthful, but in the next video I will be starting on creating models, and yeah, we're going to work on this step by step. And, you know, I want to show you guys how to, you know, do all the stuff and get a understanding. I hope it made sense. I hope you were able to create your first application as well as your first project. And yeah, I hope you liked this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. And if you're already subscribed, thank you guys so much. But yeah, don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you guys so much for watching.